white wine kick.
And welcome to the Planet X podcast. I'm Chris.
Mike.
And once again, we have Jay Taylor with us.
Hello.
Hello, Jay.
How you guys doing?
We're good. We're good. We had a big movie come out this weekend that 2 of the 3 of us haven't seen yet, but we're still gonna fucking talk about it because it deserves talking about.
Because when Jay's on, we talk superheroes.
Right? Because he doesn't pay attention to anything else. So
Because Jay draws them funny books.
And this is the superhero movie I've literally been waiting for my whole life.
Yeah, and
you know, it sucks it came out on a holiday weekend, and I'm kind of busy, and it's tough to square away the time to go see it and not be rushed in doing Easter. I guess when you're trying to do a couple different Easter dinners and then work in a movie, I've done, I believe, pretty well of avoiding spoilers over the past 3-4 days. When we're recording right now Monday night, I guess it came out on Thursday. You know, I've seen little bits of this and little bits of that, but and for the most part, I'm gonna guess without seeing the movie that Superman and Batman, they meet, they fight, then they become friends, and then they fight bad guys, and the end. And then Justice League coming up.
And I did the exact opposite of you because I like Batman. I love Superman. But there was just not one part of this movie over the 2 years that, Mike and I in our previous podcast life have talked about this movie so much. I'm sick of it. And I didn't like Man of Steel at all. And I tried. I've given it multiple watchings, and I didn't care for it. So I didn't stay away from spoilers because I figured, all right, if I didn't see it this weekend, I'm probably not gonna see it anytime soon. And it might make me a bad comic book movie guy, but
as the guy who managed to somehow or other see this movie twice over the past 3 days, and
you're not quite bragging about that.
No, I'm not. I will admit that. So with a fair eye towards the fact that I don't want to spoil stuff for either A, listeners, or B, those of us in the room or in the virtual room who might ultimately see it. I will say that it was an enormously uneven movie.
That is what I've heard.
Kind of what I've heard. I've heard pretty much the same thing.
And when I say enormous, I mean it's a giant movie. It's 2.5 hours long. I know this for a fact because I took my 8-year-old. Yeah, that's right. Father of the Year. I took an 8-year-old to a PG-13 movie.
Well, it's not like you took him to see Deadpool.
Yeah, exactly. Right? But I took my 8-year-old, and he made it through just about an hour and 50 minutes before he was like, "Dad, I can't hold it any longer. I gotta go." So we went to the bathroom. Now, if you're an 8-year-old and you go to see this movie, you may come back saying it's the greatest movie you've ever seen, because that's exactly what he did. He came back saying, "This is the best movie I've ever seen." I said, "Better than the Captain America movies that you've seen?" "Oh yeah, way better, Dad." So, but it's a lot of story, and it suffers a little bit from that Age of Ultron. A lot of story in here, and not all of it is germane to the main A plot, B plot, or C plot. Again, I don't want to give away significant details. I will say this: criticism or concern going in, a year ago, Ben Affleck. No concern. Ben Affleck was I'm going to say great in the role.
I heard he killed it. I heard he was amazing in the role. I'm hearing people saying he might be the best movie Batman.
You know, I was a big fan of Christian Bale's performance, absent the voice, the voice thing, and they do continue with a little bit of that here, which only makes sense, I guess. If you're going to be Batman, you're going to disguise your voice probably, and I get that. It's a little bit better here in terms of just that voice disguise, but I will second the idea that he physically and from an acting standpoint, maybe the best modern Batman,
And I'm hearing, and this is one of the things that I heard on a lot of people say, is he's one of the first guys to play Batman that got, was good at both Batman and Bruce Wayne.
Yes.
Where Michael Keaton was good as Batman, but wasn't so great as Bruce Wayne.
Right.
And which is nice. I like hearing that he's we finally have an actor that's kind of pulling off both roles.
Yeah, totally was eminently comfortable and captured certainly an older, grizzled Batman and Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
If Dark Knight, which not a shocker to anyone, if Dark Knight is source material for this movie, he nailed that Batman and Bruce Wayne very, very well. Second point of contention.
I'm sorry. Just real quick on the Ben Affleck being Batman thing, and this is something that we talked about in the past with him being cast in this part. Is he's probably the first guy to be cast as Batman who's a fan of Batman comic books.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure helped.
I with the Michael Keaton part, I always enjoyed the Michael Keaton Batman and Bruce Wayne because he did Bruce Wayne a little different than anybody else ever did, because he did kind of a damaged Bruce Wayne, that there was this weird creepiness to Bruce Wayne, different than Batman, but he was a broken soul in a way, and he kind of let that come out. And that's definitely in a Tim Burton directing thing. That's that's probably a combination of the two, of Michael Keaton's acting and Tim Burton's directing. But I think right now you finally had a guy, I'm sure Christian Bale, who has been a Hollywood person since he was 12 years old, or 11 years old, when the Empire of the Sun or whatever, who was, he goes way back. He probably never picked up a Batman comic book in his life.
Right. It definitely showed, and this was a Batman that really, this was a Batman and a Bruce Wayne that was very comfortable in the skin of being Batman and what Bruce Wayne is when he's not Batman. Like, this wasn't, I'm trying to feel around my way of how to balance the fact that I've got this dual life. No, this is a character who's been living this dual life for 20 years and has seen all manner of things, and I don't want to give away, spoilery kind of things, but this is a Batman who's been there, done that. He knows how to manage the aspects of being Batman, how to manage the aspects of being Bruce Wayne, and how the two work together to enable him to wage his war on crime. So I think, point one, a concern that was originally Batfleck that was out there, and how's he get, versus the guy who played Daredevil. We'll come back to Daredevil, I guess, later on. But the guy who played Daredevil, how is he going to transition this role? Questions answered, and my God, does the man, for a guy who's in his mid-40s and, he's a pretty tall dude. He's, of a size with the way Batman is supposed to be sized. I think he's 6'4". He was like the first point at which you see him, and you see him in non-Batman clothing, he looks like a guy who's Batman underneath. Like, he's physically carrying himself. He dwarfs people who are around him in size. And that's, you know, for a person who's really tall and big in real life, you know, that means something, right? He should look like, even when he's not in a suit, he should look like one of the most commanding people in the room.
Yeah, yeah.
The other thing that I was going to say, too, you know, as far as stuff a year out that, you know, we started to worry about when they cast Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, I think there were an awful lot of people who were like, you know, what's the woman, the kickboxer, Gina Carano, is that her name?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, you know, or different people throwing out different names of actresses. I'll tell you what, I now can't think of anyone else on screen as Wonder Woman.
I heard she's gotten good reviews and stuff that I've seen as well.
As good a job as Affleck did, she was probably even better.
Wow. And that's saying a lot.
Yeah, and I read a brief review, a non-spoiler review that Kevin Smith talked about, and he said she stole the movie.
Mm-hmm. I will say that there's certainly a break in the movie between Wonder Woman as Diana Prince and then Wonder Woman as Wonder Woman. I'm not going to sort of go into where that break occurs and how it happens, but some of my most fun scenes of the movie are before she ever shows up as Wonder Woman.
Okay.
Right? And the trailer scene, you know, they got the trailer scene out there, I think, so everybody's seen that where she says, you know, you've never met a woman like me before. Right?
Yes, I've seen that, yeah.
The whole trappings around that scene and some of the other stuff are just excellently done, and she just seems so self-assured. Obviously, she's a beautiful woman. She, you know, carries kind of an exotic look that sort of lends to the Wonder Woman thing. But I mean, she just again, the whole thing of if these are these characters who are like unto mythical beings, she carries herself in that movie that when she's in the room, if you're not looking at Affleck because you're like, who's that giant dude over there? You're looking at her going, well, wow, she's somebody more important than the rest of us. So she really, yeah, I would say she kind of stole the show, especially as the movie progresses into the third act. So yeah, she was tremendous. So there's three parts of that trinity, right?
Yeah.
If you don't like Man of Steel because you feel that Zack Snyder's vision of Superman is not in line with what has been in comics for 75, 80 years.
Yeah. 75 years. Just
you're not going to like this movie either.
No, and that's where I'm at. Where I know I'm not going to like this movie because it just, to me, even with Man of Steel, it just, Zack Snyder does not get Superman. He does not understand Superman.
Yeah.
You know, I had heard something kind of along the lines that somebody kind of said that even Warner Brothers doesn't get Superman and they don't know what to do with him. And I think they're so caught up in it being, trying to keep it from being goofy, that they make it so dark. But I'm like, why can't they make it lighthearted? You know, I was walking around work today and thinking about it. Because I just watched Captain America.
Yeah, it's been on.
The first Captain America movie. I watched the Captain America movie with the Riff Tracks commentary, the guys from Mystery Science Theater. And you know, watching it, I'm like, oh, wow. You know, you forgot about a couple of scenes, and I'm like, this is a really good movie, and it tells a story. It tells us, it keeps itself serious enough, but also has enough humor in it, you know, and kind of even mocking itself to a point that you're like, all right, it's good natured.
Yes.
You know, one of the all weekend I was kind of reading little people's criticisms and memes that they were putting together, and it was kind of like, oh, if you're a long-term fan of the comic book, you're really gonna, you're really gonna enjoy this movie. If you're a casual fan of the comic book, you'll think it's all right. But if you're expecting the childness of the Marvel movies, you won't enjoy it. And I feel that was such a, it's like trying to like backhand the Marvel movies and try and put this movie over a little bit is taking the source material seriously.
That was a big thing. That was the big, and I don't want to use this term, but it's like the DC fanboys that just couldn't believe that this movie was getting the negative reviews that it was getting. Well, that was their whole thing. It was, oh, well, it's not childish like the Marvel movies, and
I was thinking,
give me a good Superman movie, and I'm gonna love a DC movie.
I literally today at work I was I was kind of doing some brainless work for a little bit and was let my mind drift, and I was thinking about those type of comments and thinking about the Marvel movies, and then thinking about the second Captain America movie, which was that intriguing espionage film, and I'm like, what is childish about that? I'm like, well, I'm like, okay, just because there's a little bit of humor in it, and it doesn't have to be, I'm this dark, brooding, you don't understand what it's like to be me, superhero, which you can't do. If everybody's going to be that character, then if everybody's going to be Wolverine, then nobody's Wolverine.
Yeah. Right. And and putting that kind of into like a real life scenario with everybody saying, oh, in the Marvel movies, all the heroes are always cracking jokes. Me personally, when I'm in a stressful situation, I'm gonna crack jokes.
Yeah, there's people that do that. There's gallows humor. There's you talk to any type of soldiers and stuff. I'm sorry, I'm stepping on your point, Chris.
No, that's right. I mean, you're not really stepping on it. You're just emphasizing it, and that's like my thing. Like I just like, not everybody can be that. Oh, I'm Batman, or I'm angry Superman, and angry Superman pisses me off so fucking much.
I don't like this
dark and brooding, just miserable. Like every trailer that came out in the past 2 months is just got Superman being all angry and pissed off, and
So here's the thing. Because we were kind of. I guess we're kind of going through the cast one by one. Here's the thing, and this I think is gonna may inflame you guys or not. I don't know, but I really feel like it's a shame for Henry Cavill that Zack Snyder is directing these movies, because I honestly think that given an opportunity, he actually could pull off this role.
I completely agree with you. I think there was with some of the promotional work that he's done with it. God bless you.
Thank you.
Some of the promotional work that he's done with it, you can see that he's this movie star. That he has this big personality. Right. That he has this that Superman.
Uh-huh.
That he's this guy that shows up and smiles at you, and you feel better because I'm getting fucking choked up on my own. But it's like if Jon Favreau directed this Superman movie.
Oh my God!
You would have had a Superman you could believe in.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I don't want to. Again, I'm trying to be very cognizant of the spoiler thing. There are scenes. Do you remember the very last piece of Man of Steel? The postscript, where So, what are you going to do? Well, I've given some thought about it, and I need to be in a place where, I'm going to get an opportunity to hear about the news and have my feet to the ground. And I always liked writing. Remember, he does that whole thing?
Yes.
And then you see him like he appears in the Daily Planet, and he's like, oh, in the last minute he puts on his glasses. He walks in and he shakes everybody's hand, and he's got like a smile on his face, and Lois Lane is on the inside of the joke and everything. And like in those moments at the end of that, I had so much hope for where this second movie would go because of the way he was portrayed. He was portraying Clark Kent.
I forgot about that, and I completely agree with you. I'm sorry. What was
carries through in this new movie?
Okay.
I'll say that. But Zack Snyder's absolute pathological need to cast Superman as a Christ-like God metaphor it's just all over. It's all over this film in so many ways. Even if something is simple. I'm sorry, Mike.
Okay. Before you get too far away from the Christ metaphor thing, where you could kind of do that with Superman, but it doesn't always have to be the Passion of the Christ.
Right.
It can be the wedding at Cana and the loaves and fishes and let the children come on to me, Christ.
Right. Yeah.
People have to read the whole Bible, and if you're gonna,
they only cherry pick what.
And that's the thing. You can make Superman. Superman is a Christ metaphor if you look at it. It's he is the only son of
Yeah, it's Moses. It's Moses grafted with
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but it's the problem too is that it's in the direction. It's in the visuals, and that to me is where so much of it. And this isn't just from this most recent movie, though. I will say again, it carries through. It's so much in the visual statements of the movie, and some of these have been shown in clips, so it's not like the scene where you see Superman among a throng of people who are all reaching out to him to try and touch him. Like Superman in a comic book would stop everybody and say, "What are you doing? Don't reach out and touch me like that. I'm just a regular person. I'm
a man."
To the crowd and say to them, "Don't put me on that pedestal. Shake my hand as a regular person." Like he would stop that. And there's so many other little visual things that they do in this movie that are filming everything dark and then shining light on him, but putting him in a silhouette so you can't see his face. It's like it's a lot of this weird stuff. And again, there's so much I want to say about problems with the movie as vis-a-vis Superman. But suffice it to say that if you didn't like Man of Steel, that part of this movie, the Superman part of this movie, will leave you equally as mystified as to how badly they missed the mark on their own property.
Well, and this was another meme that I saw over the past couple of days, and then it kind of got emphasized this weekend because Sci-Fi ran the Christopher Reeve Superman movies all weekend. Like I think I watched like in order like every day. I think Friday, Saturday, Sunday I just watched Superman movies. But there was it's something with like Zack Snyder saying something along the lines is like, I don't understand why people hold the Christopher Reeve Superman in such high regard. And it's
that's
like,
a legit quote. That's a legit quote.
It's a legit quote. Yeah, it wasn't, it's not something I'm making up here. And then like the bottom half of that was like all these like rankings of like the best superhero movies, and it was like Superman 1 and Superman 2 were like always, like 1 and like between like 1 and 5 on the list. And yeah, because there's a reason for that, because they understood at the time they got the character right.
Because they got it right.
They got it right. I mean, yeah,
they still have it right.
I mean, Superman 3 is goofy. Superman 4 is even goofier. Yeah. But the character is right.
And my biggest thing when I saw the Man of Steel movie, and people complain about, oh, he's destructive and he kills Zod and he does that. I kind of didn't have as much a problem with that as I did with the way the Kents raised him.
Pa Kent. Oh, man, Pa Kent.
And that, to me, is because what makes Superman Superman is both parts of it and both of his families.
Yep.
And it's that he came from Krypton with this power, and he has this wisdom in the crystals and the Fortress of Solitude and whatever. But then the people who raised him, Ma and Pa Kent, put that instill the humbleness in him, and they make him a man. They make him a person, and they make him understand that, you know, what is precious in life, and you know, and the whole thing in that with Kevin Costner's Pa Kent being like, you have to protect yourself, and we have to protect you, and you have, and the selfishness that was in it, and I mean, there was a little bit more depth to it than that, but I think they missed from there, and like on an angle, you know, when you start off by a little tiny bit, if you're out by just a little bit, and then it just keeps traveling, you get farther and farther away from where you want to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm sorry, Mike.
I was just gonna kind of reiterate what I just said again. I was listening to the sound of my own voice.
And it's again a classic example of they wasted an opportunity with a guy like Kevin Costner, right? Where if you gave him the Glenn Ford script from Superman 1, I know one thing. You are here for a reason, and it's not to score touchdowns. If you, like, you know, jumble those words up and make them a little bit more, you know, flip the story however you want, but put those words in that guy's mouth. That guy who has been, like, Hollywood hero icon and can do that whole, like, seen it all, been there, done that, tried and true kind of...
Give it the pathos of...
Yeah, that guy then and there. Even with some of the things that he said, it was still, I was kind of like, wow, that's not the right message. But man, I really wanted to be the message because he sounds awesome delivering those lines.
But it was just like a perfect example of how to do something like that was the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
And Uncle Ben and
Robinson. Cliff Robertson.
Yes, yeah. His Uncle Ben made that movie, and then you're like, and those words and those things, and you're like, this is what drives him to be the hero.
Right.
And with Man of Steel, you're like, he doesn't want to be the hero.
Right. He wants to be like a hidden guy. Because his dad told him, yeah, try and do the right thing, but make sure nobody ever sees you. And if it comes down to the question of the right thing or being seen, err in favor of not being seen.
Yeah. And
I kind of feel that they have to get Superman away from Zack Snyder.
Yeah.
You need to bring, Bryan Singer, his Superman movie was kind of the Superman 3 that we wanted in 1986 or whenever.
Yeah.
Or 1985, whenever that Superman 3 came out. That's really the movie that should have followed Christopher Reeve's Superman 2. And in that context, you got the trilogy the right way. It wasn't the big giant Superman movie that everybody kind of hoped it was going to become after, when we were in this world of we have superhero movies now.
Yeah.
And I don't hate that movie.
No, I don't either, but it's not it's weird. It's odd to say this. It's not big enough for now's movies.
Absolutely.
If you go back and you look at honest trailers this week leading up to the Batman Superman movies, they did two segments this past week where they did the 1979 Christopher Reeve Superman and they did the 1989 Michael Keaton Batman. And they kind of touched on things about both of them, and talking about that Superman movie, they're like, he doesn't fight anybody. He just kind of wears the costume and talks to people.
Yeah.
He does the thing where he flies around the world, but everybody loves this movie, and they talk about it like one of the jokes that they do is the big voice guy's kid comes in, and they're like, are you talking about that awful Superman movie? It's so boring. He doesn't do anything, and then if you look at it from that context, you're like, oh, you're completely right. Nothing happens in this movie.
Right. He literally rescues a cat from a tree.
That's one of the things that they show in the trailer. He's literally, but it's that Superman. That movie was for the Superman TV show from the 50s and the 60s, the Superman comic strip. The Superman radio serial, it was that Superman that they kind of updated and gave to you. It was a different thing.
Flight in and of itself was enough to be exciting for us at that point. The mere fact that they were showing a guy flying, forget about,
That's how they sold the fucking movie.
Yeah,
you won't believe a man can fly.
Yeah.
But I can remember as a kid, like Superman 2 coming out. One of them right around the time that Empire Strikes Back came out. Well, I guess it must have been Superman 2 came out. And I can remember like being in the movie theater and just seeing that Superman poster. Like, say, the cardboard cutout of Christopher Reeve as Superman. And as a little kid, I'm like, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Right.
And it just embodied Superman.
Yeah.
The other funny thing that Honest Trailers did, and this was something that I completely brought up when everybody freaked out about Ben Affleck being cast as Batman, was that when they cast Michael Keaton as Batman for that one in '89, everybody freaked the fuck out.
Yeah.
If they nerds went so crazy they invented the internet after that, so they could go.
So we could have like shows where we just talk about shit, and yell about it.
Well, that's what I remember we talked about in the past, and I can remember that happened. I remember being in comic book stores and there being these heated discussions about how awful Michael Keaton will be as Batman and things like that. And then they kind of said they started talking about the movie, and they're like, this just checks off everything in, like, nerd rage comic book movie doing it wrong. Like, a controversial guy cast in the part, they change the costume, they change the origin, they kill the villain. They're like, I got nerd rage bingo. This is...
Nerd rage bingo.
Yeah, it just goes to show you that... what we flip out about now over time. But I will say that as far as some of the things of this movie that people have been upset about in the past with Man of Steel, there's carryover here, and it is not to the movie's positive. There's also, and again, I'm trying to be vague. There are also 2 or 3 storytelling things in this movie that are, and again, I hate to come off being too, preachy about something or whatever. God knows Zack Snyder's made more money in his life than I'll ever make. But there's just some things storytelling-wise in this movie that I can't, for the life of me, understand how they make it to the screen without somebody going, that doesn't that's not set up, it's not carried through properly, and it never pays off. And it's a very specific moment in the movie, and I think a lot of people have commented on it, and it's very inside baseball in terms of comic books, and it literally, when it happens, it's cool imagery, but that's all it is, right? It's like literally like, hey, we've got the ability, so let's do this cool imagery thing, but we're not gonna have any setup to it. In the actual thing that happens, we're not gonna properly give any context to it when it's happening, and then once it happens, we're never going to come back to it. You're going to be left hanging on this.
Just some out-and-out fan service, or
Oh no, it's past fan service, Mike. That would be like like there's. It's not a spoiler to say that there's a fight between Batman and Superman, and it has vast echoes of Dark Knight.
Okay.
Right? Like even blow for blow at times. Like, Batman employs a number of different technologies in the Dark Knight, and you are going to see some of those occur again. No, this is a separate narrative thing that creeps in, and it's. I mean, I watched the movie twice, and I still sit there and go, you didn't set any of this up. You drop it in there. It happens in a very confusing way, and then it's never referred back to again.
Fantastic.
Now,
is it set up for some of the future prequels or future sequels?
It is. I clearly would suggest that it is going to theoretically pay off in a Justice League movie, I suppose, but it would need to be a very different Justice League movie than the one that I think they set up with the rest of the movie. It's like right.
Okay.
It's like a setup. It's like they set up. You know how like Marvel is so awesome
that they've been laying the bricks for things for a long time.
It's like imagine for a minute that Thor, now Age of Ultron, which comparisons a little bit to this movie are there, yes, but Thor goes into a well and sees a vision that clearly is all kinds of stuff that is going to catch us back up when we get to the third Thor movie, right?
Yeah. Right.
But imagine that after you did that setup for the third Thor movie, the rest of, or another portion of the movie sets you up for a Thor movie where he battles Yuluk the Troll instead of Loki on the throne.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like, I can't say too much more without.
I kind of get. I kind of get what you mean in that they're spreading themselves thin. I get, or
either that, or they're going to have such a monster story going on in this, which given the way this was,
I think this is suffering from trying to play catch up.
Yeah,
that Marvel,
which is something we'd been saying for a while. Was it just kind of seemed like the Marvel, and the Marvel movies are not flawless by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
But Marvel really, as far as setting up their universe, they did it right.
Yep.
And but it just seems like Warner Brothers went and said, "Oh, look, these Marvel movies are doing so good. Let's just, we have to catch up. We have to get everybody in a movie all at once, not set up And the thing is, it's like we've had Batman, Superman movies for 30 years now.
Yeah.
35 years now. I want to see those other characters' movies. I didn't need to get a new. I don't need another Batman origin story, which, from what I hear, we kind of got a little bit again.
No, not kind of.
All right, I'll take that as a yes. We did. We got it again.
Yeah.
Just because we didn't have a Batman movie a couple of years ago.
Right. Yeah.
I just wish they would have just taken their time and built this universe, as opposed to trying to just cram everything into one thing. But on the flip side, their TV is doing what their movies should be doing.
Their TV is so good, but has nothing to do with these movies.
Yeah.
It's an entirely separate iterative universe than the movie universe. And don't you forget it, because Grant Gustin is not the Flash. And there is no Green Arrow.
That does play into the whole DC universe, because there are 7 gazillion, planes of existence in the DC universe.
Yeah, it's Crisis on Infinite Networks.
Yeah, and that so that's the thing. That makes sense. I guess.
I want to come back to something that you said, because and I am going to spoil this. So, Mike, if you don't want to hear this, you're going to have to plug your ears off.
I'll live. Nothing's going to surprise you too much.
And I hate to come off as a Marvel-ophile, because honestly, if you ask me right now what I'm buying more of, I probably buy more DC books than I buy Marvel books, because I'm an art guy and I like what is considered to be kind of the DC house style right now. But there is a scene in this movie where a character, remember in Avengers when Pepper Potts asked Tony Stark, and she says, "What's the Avengers?" And Tony Stark goes, "It's this," and he does the Tony Stark hand thing where the computer screens open up to you and you see the clips of each of the characters. There's a character who does that in this movie and clicks open each little thing, and clicks open a thing and sees the Flash, and then clicks open and sees Aquaman, and clicks open and sees another character that I don't think it's been revealed yet that he's in the movie. Maybe. I'm not sure, so I won't say anything more.
I saw a spoiler about the other guy that I didn't know was going to be in the movie.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's Cyborg, Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I saw the same.
Okay, and so then somebody clicks open and sees a Cyborg, and I just sat there in the theater, and when I first saw it, I'm a huge Aquaman fan. I think I've said that before on the podcast. So the first thing, of course, was I was super psyched to see Aquaman on screen, even if it is an Aquaman with long hair and no orange shirt. But that's me being nerd rage, right?
This is the home of nerd rage, man.
But once I got over that, I said to myself, that's just like that scene in Avengers. The only difference being is, in Avengers, we had seen the movies that they were showing the clips of.
Yeah.
In DC, they were showing us something we had never seen before, so there's nothing
that grabs there's nothing that grabs like the casual fan the casual moviegoer that's going in that, like with the Marvel movies where you're going like, okay, I know there was I may not have seen, Captain America, but I know there were Captain America movies.
Right.
I may not have seen Thor, but I know there are Thor movies. Okay, there's Thor, there's Captain America. Okay, yeah, I know there were movies that must have happened in that movie. I'm gonna go see that movie.
Right. If you walk
There's
out of
nothing
this movie,
to latch onto.
Yeah, you walk out of this movie and go, let me go see that movie. They'll be like, oh yeah, give it 2 years, and that Aquaman movie's coming to a theater near you.
And then you're also like, well, there's Flash. That's not the Flash
that I
watch on TV every week. That's the wrong Flash.
Yeah.
And what sucks with watching the weekly shows, with watching the DC shows, and then it's like every time that they put somebody in one of these DC movies now, they have to kill the character on the TV show. They killed Amanda Waller because she's going to be in Suicide Squad. They killed Deadshot because he's going to be in Suicide Squad. They don't even call it Suicide Squad anymore. They were Task Force X when they got mentioned the other week. So it's
Arrow. So
I just wish with Arrow and Flash that they would just let them have those other characters, even to the point of let them have the big names. Superman doesn't have to be on every week, but if Superman shows up once a season, if Batman shows up once a season, if you do a little television movie or something like that, you know, let those characters exist there, but it doesn't have to be about them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, just give it to me. I'm still gonna go see. If you make a good Batman movie, I'm still gonna go see a Batman movie. And if Batman's on television, I'm still gonna watch Batman on television. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, well, I get Batman on television. I'm not gonna go see him in a movie.
Yeah.
You know, it's that old ideology of like when in old movies they used to never show homes with television sets because they considered television a competitor.
Yeah. They're trying to protect the storytelling ability, or hey, it's worth more to us to get the hype of Batman in a movie. People have an unquenchable thirst for that character. They're gonna go see it, watch it, do whatever every time you show him.
And they just say they're like, oh, if we're giving it away for free, we're losing money.
No, you're not, because if you make a good TV show and it gets people interested in Batman or Aquaman or whoever, and then, there's an Aquaman movie coming out, those people that are invested in that show are going to want to go check out that movie.
Yeah.
But
I will say the last of kind of the thoughts I will say about the movie, in terms of other actors and stuff, because I feel like that's kind of the safest place to go to talk about performances, is I'm a huge fan of Amy Adams. But her character in this was kind of at times really cool, and then at times like sort of wildly doing like kind of crazy things that didn't make a lot of sense. I threw a tweet out there or whatever about this a little while ago, and then again, is that the guy Jesse Eisenberg, who played Lex Luthor, who from the minute that I saw it, I think I was not alone in going, what? He so much reminded me in this movie of Glorious Godfrey from Legends, and elements of this story followed some of the Legends storyline that I half believe that he's going to turn out to actually be Glorious Godfrey. It's going to be a reveal later on that he actually is Glorious Godfrey, not Lex Luthor. But his role is kind of really uneven, like motivation shifts and reasons why he's doing things by his own admission changes. The guy who plays Alfred, famous guy,
Jeremy Irons.
Thank you. Yes, he's awesome. I'm trying to remember what other characters would be important or whatever. But it's a deeply flawed movie in my opinion, for the reasons that we talked about. I would recommend people see it if they're comic fans anyway, just to sort of know where you're going, because it does serve as a lot of build towards the next movie, certainly. But yeah, it's not going to be. Having seen it twice, I've seen it enough.
Wow.
With the Jesse Eisenberg thing, I like Jesse Eisenberg. There were a couple films, some of the smaller things that he's done, like Squid and the Whale, and and a couple of the films that he's been in, and I'm like, all right, this guy can act, and he's a different type of looking actor. He doesn't look like everybody else. So in the trailers, it just doesn't come off like Lex Luthor. I know they're trying to go for something different, and I know they're trying to capture this newer genius, this type of like a Steve Jobs type of guy.
Or even like a Mark Zuckerberg kind of.
Yeah, Zuckerberg too. Yeah, is the other one. But it feels like, and this is another thing that the DC stuff has had trouble with, that they don't know how to make things not be Batman. That he's being in the trailer, he seems so frantic and big and over the top that it's like Lex Luthor's not the Joker.
Well,
Lex Luthor is got to be like he's big and he holds the screen, but for different reasons.
Right.
And I feel like they skipped over an interesting Lex Luthor that we never got to see in the films, because we've gotten the Gene Hackman / Kevin Spacey Lex Luthor, which is essentially the same character. It was developed the same way.
I think there was some significant differences between the way they portrayed Lex Luthor.
I thought it was. I mean, he was definitely colder, and he was definitely trying to be darker, but he was the I'm Lex Luthor criminal mastermind, which was the Lex Luthor of almost like Golden Age Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
Where the Lex Luthor I always liked is billionaire industrialist
John Byrne,
who's secretly I'm doing all this evil shit, but you don't know it.
Right.
There's all these things, and if I do get caught somehow, I always have this way out of it. So, oh no, that wasn't me. That was, he
was stolen 3 months ago, right?
Yeah. These little, things like that. So we never got that kind of that cool Lex Luthor should really be like Tony Stark. The way Robert Downey Jr. plays Tony Stark in the Marvel Universe should be the way that, to me, somebody plays Lex Luthor in the DC Universe, because that's kind of who they are. He's a guy who's made himself this Superman. He's made everything that he has. Everything that he has is from him. And part of his hatred of Superman is he just sees that here's a guy who was born with it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was, to me, the driving force behind Lex Luthor, that it was jealousy, that he's the most powerful, most popular man in the world, and then all of a sudden this guy shows up who's a bigger deal than him, and it's just because of the way the sun hits him that guy's a bigger deal. So now this guy is driven to best Superman for his self-righteous indignation of I should have your adulation, not this alien.
If you're looking for a clean-cut motivational through line like you just described for this character, good luck.
Yeah. I can kind of see when he's doing he's kind of soliloquying a little bit to Lois Lane in one of the trailers.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're not okay.
This guy goes from being an advocate for national security to a troubled kid with daddy issues to a mad scientist guy to a prophet.
Wow, my head hurts.
All in 2.5 hours.
Wow.
It's scary. I mean, and the narrative the narrative story that they're trying to tell hinges on what his motivations are, and it shifts like the sands of the desert that the movie starts in.
Wow.
So anyway, yeah.
Yay. I guess while we're talking about superhero things and Ben Affleck superhero things,
Yes.
I want to touch a little bit on Daredevil. I know, again, Chris has not done his research, and
I haven't done my research, but
I would call it homework at this point.
I promise I will get caught up.
but
My hours are changing. I'm getting an hour back in my day. I will get caught up.
Instead of going to see Superman Batman this weekend, I watched 6 episodes of Daredevil Season 2. And much like Ben Affleck makes up for him screwing up Daredevil, Daredevil has made up for Ben Affleck for screwing up Ben Affleck. And for the hero v hero, the Daredevil Punisher stuff, in at least so far in the first 6 episodes, has been phenomenal. Has been definitely stuff that harkens to the comic book. There are things that I knew were going to happen because I'm like, oh, I know where this is going. I know what direction this is going. But they humanize the characters, both characters, fantastic, and it's the best portrayal of the Punisher, I think, where he's the most a real person, that you kind of feel that emotion. I mean, each guy that had portrayed the Punisher in the past, I always say the Dolph Lundgren soliloquy from the Dolph Lundgren Punisher summed up the Punisher, and that Punisher he was portraying a lot. The Thomas Jane Punisher, I feel that movie just suffered from being PG-13 and not an R-rated movie. I think that hurt it. Because it was even doing the stories. I think the story it was doing was from the Punisher Max series.
Yeah, it was from the Steve Garth Ennis Steve Garth.
Yes.
I think
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, the Garth Ennis stories.
Yeah.
And that was a rated R comic book.
Oh, yeah.
That they then watered it down to a PG-13 film, and they just watered it down so much. And I think Thomas Jane could have done a good job, and I think given the right context. And then that third Punisher movie just kind of got into being, all right, you want to see Punisher blow people up? Punisher's going to blow people up.
A prime example on how, had the Thomas Jane Punisher been done right, there was that short film.
Yeah.
Yes.
That,
Laundry Day or whatever. Which was phenomenal. And that was like, okay, yeah, I see that's the Punisher. I think that did the Thomas Jane justice. Yeah,
but I was excited when they cast Bernthal as the Punisher because I liked him as Shane on The Walking Dead, and when I saw with that character, seeing him play that character, I'm like, yeah, I can see him pull off the Punisher well.
I was interested, because he did in Walking Dead. He did such a good job of being that psycho douchebag that Shane was in Walking Dead, that I'm like, is he going to be able to make this Punisher sympathetic? Like, am I going to care? Or is this just going to be, is he just going to be some badass douchebag that shoots people? And when he gets into it, you're like, oh yeah, I care. Like, actually, there's a scene in watching it that my wife cried, I cried, and fucking Daredevil cries.
Nice.
Because it's just that good. It drums up, it gets you. It does, and you feel it. and you start thinking about it in that context of, and especially this weekend with the Batman Superman movie coming out, and it's that Punisher Batman argument, I guess, that's always existed in comics.
Yeah.
That here's Batman who catches his guys, puts them in jail, and then they get out and they kill people again. And then Punisher, who does what Punisher does in killing people, which isn't heroic, but it's his...
He's not trying to be a hero.
He's not trying to be a hero, yeah. And, you know, like, well, you know, on that argument of, well, they both suffered the same type of loss. And that's where I disagreed with people all the time, where I'm like, a child that loses his parents and then strives to keep that from happening to other children is much different than a parent who loses his wife and children and just has nothing left but hate and doesn't ever want that to doesn't want that to happen to anybody, but only sees the emptiness of it.
Right.
You know, it's the same. I guess it's the same. It's two guys looking at the same picture, but they're looking at it from very different angles.
Yeah.
A kid who loses his parents has a future.
Yes.
A parent who loses their child and the other parent. You know, as distorted as it could be seen to be, if a parent loses a child and the other parent's still alive, well, you can still have a family. But if you have both, if you lose your child and your spouse at the same time, that ends your future that would have been on that track. No ifs, ands, or buts. So it definitely plays a little bit differently for those two. You know, I completed the whole thing. You know, the sick mind, I guess. And I can just say that as a, you know, I'm a obvious huge comic fan. Maybe not as obviously. I'm a huge fan of Frank Miller, especially his early work on Daredevil as an artist and a creator. And this series, especially as it continues on from where Mike is and gets to the culmination of it, is so much a as accurately or as inaccurately as Zack Snyder understands Superman. The creators of this Daredevil series understand Daredevil, and specifically in this second season, understand the Daredevil that Frank Miller turned into, you know, went from being a title that was on its way to being canceled at Marvel. Was only, you know, when Frank Miller became the artist writing drawing over Danny O'Neill, Daredevil was being produced once every 2 months. And within, I think it was within 12 issues, it went to a monthly title and then became Marvel's second bestseller behind the X-Men. And it's funny because I think that a lot of the first season owed a lot more to the miniseries Daredevil Father and Daredevil Man Without Fear, that were like two John Romita series that I think one of them was a Miller project too. But they came out like kind of much later, like in the late 90s, early 2000s. But this, I felt like I was watching the comic books from Daredevil 175 and 180 and 185 and 190. Like that whole run, I felt like I was watching that come to life. And I don't remember where the cutoff point is for, you know, what happened in episode 6. But, I mean, there's just so many great moments. I will say, though, the one thing, and this is a criticism, I guess, I had of the first season of Daredevil, the first 13 episodes, and I think it is mirrored a little bit in this, and I also think maybe a little bit of it holds true for Jessica Jones. is I don't know why they've chosen the idea of 13 episodes as their, as what constitutes these all-in-one seasons that they release. But it feels like to me that this is now the third one where I feel like 13 is maybe too many. And that there's a little bit of there's just certain points where it's like, okay, I just watched that episode and I know that there was an awesome fight scene and I know that there was some cool dialogue, but I don't feel like we moved any closer to resolving the story at all.
I kind of feel like I just watched the last episode that I just watched, episode 6.
Yeah.
At this point, Elektra's in, and there's a little bit of the Punisher stuff going on, and it's the office party.
Elektra scene where they got the Nakatomi building.
Yes.
Which was a nice little nod, by the way.
Yeah,
like and that's not even necessarily the sort of slow point that.
Well, I didn't think it was a slow point. I just kind of felt like that episode. It was a cool episode, but
didn't advance the story.
You could have done.
Yeah.
You could have cut that in half almost, and then given me a little, other story and moved things along.
Yeah.
But I guess I still enjoyed it, but I'm like, all right, this didn't go anywhere, but it's an episode.
It feels like there's occasionally filler.
Yes.
It's good filler.
Yeah. It's not.
It seems like they're like somehow or other, maybe contractually with Netflix or something, in order to get this deal, they have to get the 13 episodes or something. So. And then the other thing too, and I don't know how much you noted this, how much you guys noted this in the in some of the other ones, but there's very definitely like if you notice, like as is not uncommon with regular television series, like there's different directors for a lot of the episodes.
Right.
And every once in a while, you just get an episode where you feel like that. Tonally, the tone,
the
just
vibe,
just kind of shifts a little bit into something that it, like it gets, like it might be like the prior 2 episodes you watched were like really heavy and kind of dark and sort of like you're in it and everything, and then all of a sudden you get to an episode where shifts a little bit, and now we're like, we were down here and now we went ping ping, we're up here just for this one episode. And now we're going to drop down here again.
Well, Walking Dead is very big for that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, don't watch it, but...
Yeah, Walking Dead, you can have some episodes where you're like, all right, Greg Nicotero directed this episode. You're going to have these type of beats and this type of tone and vibe. And then I forget who the name of the woman that directs.
Gail Ann Hurd?
Yes. I think that's it.
And
maybe, but her episodes have a very different vibe, and you can feel it, and even without necessarily knowing, you like at the end, you look at it. If you look it up, you're like, all right, you could tell, or at least I'm at that point now. Whatever this is. Season 6, I'm starting to be able to tell who directed what episode.
Yeah.
But I think you're in for a continued very, very fun ride. There's a moment in episode 8 or 9, I think, where you're going to be like, oh yeah. And it's really good and ends on an awesome note. It's really, to be commended. And that guy, who I did not know the guy because again, not a Walking Dead watcher or fan, but the guy who plays the Punisher is phenomenal. The actress who plays the actress who plays Elektra does a really good job. I'm completely in love with the actress playing Karen Page. I mean, she's a great actress. She stole the first season, in my opinion. She was so good. And she continues to just be like, it's funny because she, obviously they killed Yurik in the first season. I hope it's not a spoiler for anybody out there, but and she really kind of operates a little bit like that spirit.
Yeah.
In this series, like she really has the, I'm going to get to the truth, and I'm going to risk it all in order to find out what the truth is and to get to it, and that makes for a compelling kind of character, I think.
She's, they've done really good things with her character without having to go to the Frank Miller extreme.
Yeah.
That her character eventually got to.
Right.
And it's interesting. And it stays interesting. It's not just like, oh, here's Daredevil's girlfriend. It's, she's an intriguing part of the story.
Yep.
And almost to a point, she's kind of the heart and soul.
Yeah, that's
of the series. Yeah.
To me, every time she's on the screen, here we are. I was just talking about this with Wonder Woman, and these kind of good, strong female characters sort of stealing the show a little bit. I mean, she really does. Like when she's on screen, you're like, all right, what's going on in her head? What is she thinking about? And again, I didn't know this actress either from her time on True Blood. I never really watched that show, but apparently she got really good reviews for the work that she did on that as well. But she's rock solid. The cast in general is really, really good. I mean,
yeah, and they've done things like, especially I think with this season, you definitely get a vibe that the Karen Page and Elektra characters are kind of the angel and the devil in Matt Murdock's life.
Right? For sure.
And Foggy Nelson is the conscience, I guess, of of it. He's Jiminy Cricket.
Yeah.
Nice.
And it's everybody that's in it is an interesting character.
Yep.
It's so, compared, to compare it to another comic book show like Gotham that shoehorns in these characters from the comic book, and then this show, when you get somebody, you're like, oh, here's an interesting character. Max the dog is in the series, and you're like, oh, Max the dog. I'm worried about Max the dog. Let's get.
Have you? I hope it's not spoiler territory. Have you? Has Melvin Potter made his reappearance yet? In what you've seen?
Melvin Potter has come back, and he's worked on he's been working on the suit. Yeah. And the thing with that I love with him is the fucking the saw blades.
Saw blade. I was like, yes.
Because I don't know if you've noticed in the first season and in the first appearance, or they kept showing the saw blades were always there.
Right.
They're always in it around him. But when he picked up the saw blade, I actually paused it to explain to my wife. Yes. I'm like, you see, he was the gladiator, and
who had saw blades on his hands. Yes. Saw blades on his wrists. Like, that makes no sense as a weapon, but it was great.
And I like that the Stiltman outfit is behind him.
Yep. Oh, so many good little nods. God, they do stuff
and
right.
That's fun stuff when you catch stuff like that in the background.
Yep.
Done correctly.
Yes, oh, God.
It's not shoehorned in. It's done well.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. Well, I want to bring up another spoilery thing, but I'm not going to. All right.
I was going to say, I think we did. We covered Daredevil, Punisher. We covered Batman, Superman, even without seeing it. I'm ready to wrap things up if you guys are. I don't know if it.
I am as well.
I am.
So you got anywhere you're going to be, Jay?
I do. This coming Sunday, I'll be in Toms River for the Jersey Shore Comic Con. It's a real nice show put on by Dan and Mary Campbell. They are kind of fixtures on the con scene here in New Jersey. 20-plus artists in the room, including Paris Cullins will be there. Who worked famously on Blue Devil and oh god, it's escaping me right now. Well, anyway, Paris is a well-known DC artist. A bunch of other guys. Bob Petrosello will be there. Certainly, I will be there. And then the following week, I am in Camden for well, honestly, what last year was one of the highlights of the year, Camden Comic Con. And I know immediately as soon as I say it, everybody goes, Camden, really? It's on the campus of Rutgers Camden. It's a free show. Nice. It really caters to small independent creators. There's some decent programming this year. Big coup for the show. They got Chris Claremont, who is going to be
nice.
So that's kind of a nice thing. But it's free to get in. There's tons of giveaways. There's programming. So if you're in the area, I definitely would recommend coming out to see that show. And then I guess we got AmazeCon as we progress further on towards.
Yeah, that should be the weekend after, right?
Yeah. So if it's the 9th for Camden.
AmazeCon is
15th, 16th, 17th.
Yeah. So that's the schedule for me. Busy next couple of weeks. So if you get a chance, come on out, say hello, and tell me why I'm an idiot for the opinions I've expressed here on the show.
You're just gonna be, people just gonna walk up to you. You're an idiot. You're like, do I know you?
Who are you?
Who are you again? Yeah, but you'll be at AmazeCon. We'll be at AmazeCon, causing all sorts of ruckus. So that should be fun.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to my guest spot roaming the floor of AmazeCon, being like, "Oh, who's this joker? Bill Gerard? What?"
So anyway, we'll wrap up there. You know where to find us. We're on iTunes and Stitcher. You can check us out at the channelzpodcasts.wordpress.com, facebook.com/channelzpodcasts. You want us to talk about something, shoot us an email at channelzpodcasts@gmail.com. So we'll see you next week. I'm Chris.
I'm Mike.
I'm Jay.
And we got nothing.
I'm back.